Hi, everyone. Welcome to our community health and wellness discussion on psychological warfare. We are going to be looking at how constructs such as germ games actually translate to mind games. Sometimes psychological warfare is couched in terms of things like germ games or readiness. However, when you are talking about a bioterror game that goes live, you are basically talking about state sanctioned terror. And here in this article, you see this discussion about these germ games. And so there's an assertion that world leaders need to participate in germ games or bioterror games in anticipation of real events actually occurring. There's also the assertion that billions of dollars need to be spent between the US and the UK on these types of germ games. Now, this article addresses the fact that the individual who is asserting the need for these bioterror games in anticipation of these bioterror attacks, that this individual has an uncanny ability to predict these types of events. And so a prediction was made previously in 2015 related to the current situation. And then you see another uh, dynamic going on with some germ games in 2019 preceding what turned out to be the current health crisis that we are dealing with. There's just a little bit of tweaking of the narratives, but you basically have the same situation. And so you have these situations where it looks like germ games are being played or the germ games have gone live. Now, many people believe that you can excuse terror if it's done for readiness purposes. However, Dr. Stephen Hewitt at University of Birmingham makes a very important point, and he indicates that terrorism by the state is still terrorism. And he is quoted as stating, "What is state terrorism? It is similar to non-state terrorism in that it involves politically or ideologically or religiously inspired acts of violence against individuals or groups outside of an armed conflict. The key difference is that the agent of the state are carrying out the violence." And so it should be no surprise that some people found it very interesting that after this assertion was made about the need for germ games and that germ warfare is imminent, that these vials would be found in this university laboratory and be marked smallpox. And that was indicated that these vials did not actually contain smallpox, but they contain vaccinia, which is the virus that is used to create the vaccine for smallpox. It's still unclear why this was found there, why it was found, when it was found, and how it was found. However, again, this brings up all sorts of questions when you are talking about someone asserting that psychological warfare needs to be played, and then you find these vials and then these are publicized. Now, when creating a cognitive schema of biowarfare, it is important to remember that all biowarfare is an act of terrorism. And so it doesn't matter who's doing it, it's an act of terrorism. It can be state, it can be non-state. And the reason why it is an act of terrorism is because it basically relates to this idea of creating in the target, some people might say the victims, in the target, this sense of fright or fear or alarm. And so that is the actual goal. And so what is happening here when you are talking about biowarfare as terrorism, you are essentially talking about psychological warfare. And it doesn't matter whether it is highly politicized or whether it has a religious foundation or a socioeconomic foundation. The fact of the matter is that the act of biowarfare, bioterror, it is all under that umbrella of psychological warfare because this is really a war on the mind. And so when these events take place, people often get lost in the terror event itself and actually forget the end game of terror. And so they don't stop And many times they don't believe they have the opportunity to stop. They don't stop and reflect on what exactly is going on. They don't engage in metacognition, which is thinking about their thinking about the particular situation. But it is important when you are creating that schema, when you think about bioterror, you think about biowarfare, to always keep in mind that what is really going on is a battlefield of the mind. Understanding psychological warfare and the idea of bioterror involves an important step of understanding the terrorist mind. And so some people might think that they don't understand the terrorist mind. They've never encountered a terrorist. However, if you've ever encountered a bully, you've encountered the terrorist mind, because a bully essentially is a terrorist. And so the goal of the bully is to instill fear in the targeted person. You also have a number of historical examples of the terrorist mind. It's just that people have given other terms to the individuals who were carrying out these fear campaigns. And so they might call them settlers, colonizers, crusaders, religious extremists. And so those individuals, when they are couched in those terms, they understand themselves as accomplishing some pivotal political or religious aim. However, ultimately, what these individuals and these collectives are doing is fear installation in order to achieve a particular goal. The goal may be political, it might be economic, it might be some religious imperative. However, ultimately, the goal is to induce fear in order to get to the end game. And continuing on, we have some theories by Alexander and Klein. This is 2005. And basically what they are saying is that when someone is acting as a terrorizer or a bully, their goal, they have a cognitive process that includes a goal to create a sense of panic and fear in other people. They have a need to actually breed this feeling of hopelessness and desperation in others, and that this is another drive for them. And so this is an impetus for them. This is a motivator for them. So when individuals are feeling hopeless and desperate, this is serving as fuel for the individuals who are instigating this entire process. And that might be why you see some individuals, when they are talking about these sorts of things, they are smiling when they are talking about it. There is a German word for this, and it's about enjoying the suffering of others. And I'll think about that word and get back with you on that. But that's what you see going on here. So there's a bit of sadism that is going on with respect to actors when it comes to terror. And so this is also tied to the destruction of feelings of safety for those who are targeted. And so it's a really narcissistic underpinning going on here. And so you have these perpetrators, these terror actors, these bullies, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about state or non-state. They want to feel like they are smarter and slicker and more clever than other individuals. And this includes people in authority. And so the smarter that they can be over someone else, the better they feel about themselves. And so there is quite a bit of effort made to instill in others a sense of incompetence. And so if you reflect on instances where you saw something that looked like psychological warfare, it looks very much like the average narcissist attack. And so you see these dynamics of trying to make other people feel less than. And so that's what that creating a sense of hopelessness and desperation is really all about. It may look like there's something else going on, but that is what is functioning underneath all of these other things. So you can call them germ games, you can call them war games, you can call them whatever you want to call them. However, it is all psychological warfare. And so in this battlefield of the mind, when someone believes they have won the battle, it's not a physical battle. When they believe they have won the battle, it is when they believe they have brought the target under submission mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Now, you have this assertion by an individual who is particularly keen on these types of psychological warfare games. You cannot control the behaviors of other people. However, what you can control are your own behaviors. You can control your own thoughts. You can control your own feelings. And so the question becomes, in preparation for these psychological warfare games that appear to be non-ending at this point, in preparation for these psychological warfare games that have been promised in the future, what is it that you can do to make yourself ready? What will you need to do to put yourself in a state of readiness? Not just physically, because remember, these are psychological warfare games. So what is it that you're going to do to prepare yourself mentally, spiritually, and emotionally?